Hi, Glenn. How are you going today?
Craig, great to be here in sunny Newcastle, your old hometown.
Yes, my hometown. I wish I was there. I would normally be there for Christmas. And do you have any plans for New Year's? It's New Year's Eve.
Yeah, no, it's a really quiet one for me tonight. I've got a big week coming up next week, but yeah, just a quiet night at home tonight.
Yeah, the Sydney test, I'm assuming.
Yeah, Sydney Test coming up. So this will be my 16th Sydney Test match that I've worked on. It's I worked down at the Melbourne the Ashes Test match in Melbourne last week, and a little sort of meme came up on Instagram about it. It was 15 years ago that Shane Warne got his 700th Test wicket.
Wow.
Which was at the MCG 15 years ago. Fast forward a week on from that, he played his last Test match ever, and I was fortunate. That was my very first Test match as a ground announcer, and that was the day that Shane Warne, Glenn McGrath, and Justin Langer all announced their retirement. And
wow.
yeah, after kicking around as a kid and a bloke in Newcastle trying to forge a bit of a career, that became the start of a huge part of my life.
Do you sort of pinch yourself with things like that, like memories, and just like, oh yeah, when I first sort of called you, you said, oh, in a couple of days I'm going to the Melbourne Test, the Boxing Day. It's like an annual event. It's huge, the Ashes.
Look, particularly, I've learnt this even more. I'll come to appreciate this even more over the last couple of years, that every event that you get to do, it's an honour and a privilege, and it may sound a bit corny to people, but it really is. Even different bits and pieces that happened during the match. We're in Melbourne. Scott Boland, as we just got 6 for 7 in the Boxing Day Test on his Test debut, and my producer sitting next to me, I just whacked him in the arm. I said, "Remember that day Scott Boland's got 6 for 7 at the MCG? We were there that day." And there's so many moments like that throughout my career that you look back on, you see things on the television, and you may hear your voice in the background, or you just sit there and watch a highlight of some incredible sporting event, and you get a time then to reflect on how I was there and I was part of that. And there's been plenty of those moments, and yeah, as I said, after the schmozzle that's been the last 2 years, and so much work dropped away, and there are plenty of times I thought that I may never get back to doing any of these incredible again. You certainly never, you do pinch yourself every time you sit in the MCG or the SCG or whatever it may be and look down on the pitch, and so very thankful that you have those opportunities.
Yeah, and 2021 as a whole, you want to just a quick review for that? Like, what were the achievements that you had?
Look, I suppose in terms of the whole COVID experience, for me, it's kind of the last 2 years. I'm very fortunate throughout my working life. I've had these two streams of work where, since I was 19, I was working in PR and communications, and I now have my own business in that. And all this talking rubbish into a microphone at sporting match, it was just a bit of a hobby, back then. So, that was. The PR and comms was always my focus, and this was a bit of fun. And then as the years have rolled on by, it's the bit of fun has become a bit more than just a well-paid hobby. It's become a legitimate career, and I was fortunate to juggle both of those for a long time. Come the start of 2019, not just myself, but so many wonderfully talented, good people lost a lot of work. And I was very fortunate where I went from having like a full calendar from March through to December for announcing and hosting and presenting work to zero. It all dropped away. But what it allowed me to do is kind of refocus myself on my PR business, and that carried me through. But as I said, I had quite a number of friends and colleagues who lost every bit of work. And it was more the fact that we got sort of 2 or 3 or 4 months into it, and there was still no, when it all shut down, we thought, a couple of months and we'll be fine. We're back now. 3-4 months into it, not only wasn't it back, there was no side of when this could come. So people who are at the top of their game in really sort of niche or specific roles in events and television and sport, those roles weren't there. And, there was so much talk about, we need to pivot and we need to do all these kind of things and look at different paths. But when you're heading down a particular path and you're very good at what you do, and there's no need to look at different career paths, particularly someone from, 40 to 50 who've spent you're kind of looking to the end of your career more than the start of it.
Yeah.
There was some different friends I spoke to at different times thought, well, maybe I need to just put a line through this now and look for something else. Look, we're very fortunate that we are getting back. Where even down in the test match in Adelaide, there was a couple of COVID cases within the broadcast compound, which caused a great deal of angst. There was a couple of commentators who in Melbourne who had close contacts. So the Channel 7 commentary team for one day got essentially wiped out, and they had to bring in their BBL commentary team for day 2 of the test match. So it's causing havoc still in various parts. But look, do we poke the universe and dare say it? But I don't think we're going to go back to the scenarios that we had where we were locking down states and cities and shutting down businesses and the like. So hopefully things will be a little bit better.
You, on a personal side, like you said that you had a bit of time off, 3 or 4 months off there. Were your family okay there?
Yeah, it was pretty much play on at home. So many families were dealing with just, I suppose, just minimizing movements and homeschooling and things like that. But look, we're in a very fortunate situation that we weren't affected by it. Family weren't affected by it. We were still able to work. So in the grand scheme of things, we didn't have a lot to worry about, which was great.
But we'll talk about it a little bit soon. But even your 2020 was still like busy, and you're still traveling. So
look, it was quite incredible. 2019 was probably my busiest year I've had. I had my hosting and announcing and presenting work. I had 4 international gigs. I worked at the Hong Kong Sevens. I went to Singapore to work on Brazil national football team. Had their world tour there. I went to Tokyo for the a test event for the Olympic Games. There was another one in there somewhere, but I had all those 4. Came into the women's T20 World Cup.
Yes,
and at that time, I had a contract on the table to work at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, which was I worked at the Rio Games. This was on the table, and in terms of juggling both elements of my working life, I was almost at a crossroad of, do I pull back from the PR and comms work, or do I employ someone else to help with that, and so I can kind of focus on the announcing and presenting work. And within a week period, I didn't need anyone else to help me there because I had no announcing.
So what was that? Well, I was going to talk about it a little bit later, but what was that whole experience of going to Tokyo and Japan? Because they kept from what I read in the news, it was like very tight-lit, no fans, just what was the whole experience of had you been to Japan before as well? Or?
No, I've never been to Japan. When I went in it was July, August 2019, so COVID wasn't even on the radar then. So
right.
It was kind of play on. But in terms of Japan, and this is kind of preaching to the converted here, I'd never been to Tokyo, never been to Japan before. An incredible experience. Yeah. I couldn't believe there'd be so many people, but so much order. Even going to the train station where there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, and everyone lines up orderly, stands in a line. The train pulls up, doors open, everyone comes out, everyone goes back in. There's signs up there saying don't talk on your mobile phone, and no one does. And everyone's just so polite and so welcoming and so great. Yeah, it's a wonderful culture to experience, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of things that Australians can learn from the Japanese culture.
Absolutely. But the first day that I was there, I just can remember like you getting on the subway or getting on the train, and I had this big map trying to find my accommodation, and the guy just next to me, hey, can I help you? Can I help you find? Are you lost? And I was like, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's like you be good to people, it comes back to you. So yeah, like you said, that some Australian people could learn from that. Yeah. But let's talk about that a little bit later. I was going to sort of try and do it in like chronological order. Yeah. So let's go way back. So obviously we've talked about it before. Born in Newcastle.
Yep.
You grew up. Was it in like the Belmont sort of area?
Yeah, grew up in Jules, which is a suburb just north of Belmont, in East Lake Macquarie. Mm-hmm. Went to school, lived across the road from the primary school. Went to Belmont High School, and
I saw that I saw a picture there on your Instagram that you were the captain of the primary school. Is that correct?
Captain of Jules Primary School. Yeah, that's where I had my first ever public speaking experience I would have been in 5th class. I would have maybe 11, maybe 10 or 11. And when I got named, like at the end of year assembly, I suppose. So I'd been worded up that I was going to be announced as the school captain for the next year, and so I had to get up, and I think I had to thank everyone for coming along. Like that was my little bit, yeah. And I still remember I'd kind of memorized, and like this went for about 15 seconds, but I still remember getting up there without any notes and basically said something along the lines of behalf of all the students here, we would like to thank all the parents and grandparents for coming along to our end of year presentation or whatever, something like that. Yeah. And I still remember the principal got back up the lectern and said he didn't even need notes. He might this might come of it. This young fellow, he might talk a bit for a career. Who would have thought?
Bit of a career. Did you like just a random thought? Did you ever go on Romper Room?
No, my brother did. My brother
did.
We had there was actually there was like, if there were 6 kids on Romper Room on the set on the day, I think 5 were from our neighbourhood, and I was a little bit too old. But I remember sitting in the old NBN studio there watching it getting recorded. But I do remember sitting in the audience that day. So my brother was 4, I must have been 6, sitting in there watching Miss Kim and wishing I could have been up the front.
Yeah, right.
Missed something. Yeah.
And like you said, you have a brother. Was it just one brother?
Yeah. My brother Matt, who, growing up together, and he played baseball and cricket, and our sporting lives kind of progressed. Together. We played a lot through senior baseball and the likes together. So yeah.
And did your mum and dad, were they like in the sort of media entertainment field? Or?
No, not at all. No, my mum's a hairdresser and my dad's kind of was in business administration type things. But look, we had we grew up. My dad was he was a rugby league player. Played lower grade rugby league for South Newcastle, and just a real love of sport, and his parents and my mum's parents as well. So we're all my mum's parents in particular, cricket fans. My dad's parents were cricket and rugby league people. So I was sort of surrounded by sport as a kid, and there was plenty of times when I was, the middle of summer, we had a pool in our backyard, and when all the kids in the neighbourhood were in our pool, I'll be sitting in the lounge room watching the cricket on the television, and my parents telling me to go and jump out in the backyard. But I don't know, Alan Border might have been at the crease or something like that. So I was inclined to sit there and watch the cricket. So it was something. Yeah, we were surrounded by sport. My parents were very encouraging of us to play sport, and it was baseball and cricket. My dad had no idea about baseball.
Yeah, where did baseball come into it? Because
Yeah, look,
it wasn't really like a popular sport in Newcastle.
no, well, it was we were we started playing cricket before baseball. And it was interesting. My three nephews now are all playing cricket, and they're all modified games and hitting off.
Is it Kanga?
Yeah, it's kind of a variation of the old Kanga cricket.
Right.
But I remember, and you may have been the same. Like there were no modified. Like we still had to bowl off, 22 yards and the hard ball and things like that. So it was kind of a tough introduction in those days. But I started playing. Cricket with Belmont District Cricket Club as a kid, and
yes.
A guy who lived down the road from us spoke to my brother about playing baseball, and he played with athletics, and a mate of mine who I played cricket with, I spoke to him about it. He said, "No, you're playing cricket with Belmont. You come and play baseball for Belmont as well." So that'll do me, and and that's where it started. I think I was 12, so I went into under 14s, and it's amazing so much that I've been able to do and happen in my life traces back to the day I stepped up. I went to sign a rego to play baseball with Belmont. So much of my life and so many opportunities I've had through playing sport and whatnot has led me on the path that I've been on and continue on today. So I'm very thankful for those opportunities it gave me.
And a life member too. Congratulations, that's amazing achievement. And I can always remember, like, even when I was playing as well, like I played with Phoenix and Toronto, and it was always Belmont were the team to beat. But every year, first, second, and third grade, all the juniors, Belmont would always be in the playoffs. So you'd want to go to Belmont, you'd play your best, So.
Yeah, the club was very successful through the risk of a history lesson here. Through the early to mid 60s, the clubs didn't perform particularly well at all, and a couple of gentlemen by the name of John Lampkin and Don Lennox. Unfortunately, Don no longer with us. Don was a very good player in his own right, and John was a first grader, and they're both great administrators for our clubs that have got their heads together and went, well, we need to do something about this. We want to improve the standard, and they got a couple of guys from a couple of young blokes by the name of Gary Williams and Gary Heggie, who were early 20s, based on the Central Coast, but were doing big things in the game, and they came to the club not just to play, but to coach. And this was through in the mid 70s then, so sort of 75, 76, 77, really changed not just the sport for our club, but in Newcastle of how the game was played. And so through that early 70s, we had a very successful run of about over a 10-year period, and it kind of just rolled on because we had some very good people who came before me, and it was almost a case of the success that was built on. No one wanted, you didn't want to be that person who was responsible for for the club falling over or what have you. So we're very fortunate. I was I got involved as a player, and I think I was 16 when I joined the committee, and then I think I was 18 or 19, around about the time when I was the club president. So, and I did that for 10 years. It was just an all-consuming passion of mine. Again, I said it as much as I think I like to hope I did. The game and the club has given me more than I can ever repay it. The life membership is something that I'm really, really proud of. The only issue I've got now is I just don't get a chance to go back and be part of it. And I think we had a couple of old boy reunion days. 2 years that have both been knocked on the head because of COVID. So hopefully 2022 we can get back down there and tell each other, remind each other how good we used to be, and tell guys and drink a few beers on the hills.
The home run keeps getting further and further
deep.
in a bigger.
I'm only convincing myself because they all knew that I was never the bloke hitting home runs. No, it's a wonderful, wonderful part of my life, and I will forever treasure.
And what is the standard of baseball now in 2020, 2021 in Newcastle? I mean, when I first started, I started around the same time, around the mid 90s, and going to watch first grade play, I would go all the time. It was so good baseball, like really competitive. Like there was players like going over, overseas and playing in the minor leagues. But then I went back to Australia and watched some baseball, and I watched first grade. And I don't know if it was just a particular game, but I just saw the standard drop a little bit. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it is. I haven't seen a game for a couple of years. I haven't been involved, closely for, as I said, sort of 5 or 6 or maybe more. Right. But I think overall, and I'm not too sure why, but the standard probably has dropped a little from what it was. We had a couple of years ago, we've had at Belmont, we had Alexander and Lachlan Wells who came through our juniors, and AJ made his major league debut in the bigs this year, and his brother's done some great things in minor leagues as well. But apart from those guys, we haven't had a huge number of superstars come through.
I played with Ryan Rowland Smith in Toronto, and he's gone on to bigger and better things, and congratulations to him. But
wonderful career and a really great guy as well.
Yeah, but it's a shame because at that time we had some really, really good players playing that sport, and so I hope it can continue to sort of get better with the baseball, because it's important. But everybody wants to play AFL and everyone wants to play rugby league, and there's a lot of other things out there to play now. So
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's there are so many options, which is a great thing for kids these days. So many options for them to do. I think some of the sad thing is that some kids are opting not to play sport anymore. And I think families generally have, I'm going to say not as much time, but they got the same 24 hours in the day that we had 30 years ago. But I think it's not time poor, it's opportunity rich. Families have a lot more things that they can and want to do. So sometimes the sport and the kids' activities, they're not focused in those kind of areas as much, maybe. But it would be, after being such a huge part of my life, and it's great that my club's been successful, but you can't, a league or a sport can't succeed purely on the basis of one club being successful.
That's right.
You need a number of clubs to to keep developing the game and developing the young players, and want to get all these kids to come through. I this is again sounding a bit like a dinosaur, but you would remember going to rep trials and things like that, where you would have 20 and 30 and 40 kids trying out for an age group, and you go through and try and impress the selectors. But in the last couple of years in different age groups, they've struggled to get enough kids to play in a rep side, which kind of horrifies me, because it was such a such a huge thing to be
competitive
in a rep side. So wow, hopefully it will, we get through COVID. The last 2 seasons have been knocked on the head as well, which hasn't game when they haven't been able to complete seasons. And so look, hopefully 2022 they can get a season out and continue to attract more kids to the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the way that I thought of it is like I was playing soccer and cricket. That was just like the standard. And then when I started playing baseball, it was like, I keep my eye in when I'm batting and I'm throwing and I'm bowling in the cricket in the summer, and then I'm doing the same thing in the winter. So it just definitely kept my sort of eye in, But anyway, I hope it does get better in Newcastle, because we need it. We need it. I think it's important. So anyway, but this whole baseball thing got you started in your career that you're in now as an announcer. And still continuing on about baseball, Hunter Eagles.
Yeah.
Was it Hunter Eagles?
Yeah, that was it. That's how it all.
Hunter Eagles. So it was at the time where, like we were talking about before, where it was sort of like a peak for Newcastle baseball, and at that time people wanted to play baseball, and it was the very exciting times for Newcastle as well. All the domestic teams coming to Newcastle to play, all the international players, Dave Nelson, Graeme Lloyd, the Shipleys. So
that would have been. Yep.
Yeah. So how did this all come about? You getting an opportunity in '95 with the first year? Like, how did it all come about?
So, in my time with, I wasn't the guy. Like, I wasn't the kid in the debating team at school, or I wasn't that guy. And in fact, I probably shied away from it more than I ever sort of threw myself out there, despite my my speaking career started as a 10-year-old at Jules Primary School. But once I was involved with the baseball club and on the committee, there was presentation nights where you'd go and hand out awards, and we'd do funny awards and bits and pieces like that. But so the Hunter Eagles started, and I was at the game, the very first game.
Me too.
Newcastle, and they had two announcers on the day. They had a guy called Stuart Horn, who I'm still in contact with today. He was with KO, or 2KO back then. He was the morning announcer, and he had this beautiful 90s radio voice, real deep, and
right.
And so he did all the ad reads and all the general announcements and things like that. And he knew a bit about baseball. He spent some time in Brisbane, and did some stuff with the Brisbane Bandits. So he knew a little bit about baseball. But they got this other guy in who was the dad of one of the players, and he was doing kind of play-by-play announcing, I suppose you call it, and he was dreadful. Get the names right. He was. So I with my mates, with me and a couple of cans under my belt, I was probably 19. Telling my mates, this bloke's rubbish, I reckon. Anyhow, so this went on and on that night, and another mate of mine who was playing, it must have got back to him that I thought I might have been a crack at this, and he said, why don't you give the owner a call? Here's his number. So as bold as brass, I thought I'd give this guy a call, and his name was Ray, and I said, Ray, my name's Glen Hawke. I was at the game on Saturday night, Friday night, whatever it was. Look, I wouldn't mind having a go at this ground announcing bit. And he said, yeah, no worries, you've got the job, turn up next week. So there was I think that said a little bit more about the performance of the guy who was in the chair, as opposed to my ability at the time signing me sight unseen. But that was effectively the start of it. It was a free gig. I got into the baseball for nothing. They might have fed me and a couple of cans of Coke during the game, and but it allowed me to sit and learn from a proper announcer, and Stuart was great, and certainly helped me enormously in that first season. But it was the start, and I've been so fortunate that it set me on a path that I'm still on today.
So how was the preparation for that? Was it natural for you to just get in front of there and just do play-by-play for baseball?
Yeah, and I suppose it's been a little bit of a case of my whole career in parts, is that, honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I just got up there and had a crack at it, and I had a crack, and they told me to turn up the next week. So that was the only real indicator that I must have been okay at what I did. And I suppose it was the fact that I knew a lot about the game, so I could just, if there was ever any recordings of back to what it was, I'd no doubt be horrified about, what I said or how I sounded or whatever it was. That that was 27 years ago now.
That's right.
Kind of horrified about how it might have sounded, but
Your voice has the voice broken in yet there?
I think it's probably changed a little. Well, I'm sure it probably has. You kind of now
a bit deeper now.
Yeah. Well, you hear on Fox League and things, they have rugby league games from the early '80s and Ray Warren commentating the '80s. And you hear what he is now, and it's all quite different. But yeah, look, I just turned up. I absolutely loved it. I kind of wanted to. As I said, I had these two kind of parts to my career. It was around about the same time, and I was thinking about this not long ago. It was around about the same time I got this job in PR. I want to be a journalist. That's what I wanted. I want to be a sports journalist with the Newcastle Herald, and I actually got an interview for, and it didn't happen. And I fell into PR. I probably spent the first 12 months reading the paper each day, wondering what the hell I was doing. But I was doing this and I was doing that, and then the baseball and the announcing was just, a bit of fun. And I did that for 3 years before the Hunter Eagles folded.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's about it. We had the Knights, we had the Jets, but there were people already doing that. So that was about it. And it was the next summer that I got a call from the guy who was the GM of the Newcastle Breakers at the time, asking me if I wanted to do the announcing at the soccer. So that was, I've kind of thought, well,
that was out at Shortland, right? Like right.
Breaker Stadium, or Topper Stadium, or Birmingham Gardens.
Birmingham Gardens, yes.
So yeah, I did that. I did that for a while, for a few years as well, and then eventually got a gig with the Newcastle Knights, and that's where it kind of really started to take off.
And when did you first start with the Newcastle Knights? What season was that?
So that was 2003. So this 2022 will be my 20th season with the Newcastle Knights. So, I feel 100 when I start to think about that. But again, I did the Breakers for a couple of years. Then the Breakers folded or were taken over by Constantine of Parkley Markets fame. There was an involvement there with the Knights. So the guy, Tony Briscoe, who was the Knights announcer, they put him in doing the Jets as well. But they said to me, he was an afternoon radio guy, so he can't get there till later. So if you can come and do the youth league game. So that kept me involved.
Yeah.
And then Tony went from he was with 2HD, it's a radio station in Newcastle that you would know. He left there, went to the KO, their rival. There was the Knights had a long-term agreement and sponsorship with 2HD.
Yeah.
So
Gary Harley and
the big Gary Harley, and so the Knights parted way with Tony, and it got a little bit ugly at that point with that departure, and that was the end of the 2002 season. So I was sort of sitting there in the wings again. I was not the radio guy or the TV guy or anything like that. I was just a guy who knew a bit about sport and talk shit. So it was a bit of a time, and I know that the season, leading into that season, there was some other, radio announcers in Newcastle that they trialed leading into the 2003 season. And
who were some of them? Do you know?
I was actually just trying to think of it, and look, no one who stuck around in Newcastle very long.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these radio people come, regional radio, they kind of becomes very transient, and it's a stop off to somewhere greater. So, but yeah, I still remember I got a call from Steve Crow, who was a former Knights player and then a media manager, and he appointed me in 2003. And again, I still remember because like you, I was at that very first game in 1988. My dad used to take me to the footy all the time. The season before, when I wasn't playing baseball on the weekends, or where the Knights fixtures allowed it, I'd be on the hill with my mates, drinking cans, thinking, "Oh, yeah, pretty cool to do that job one day." And then when I got the job, it was a Friday night game. I mean, I thought I'd made it. This is it. This is the greatest moment of my life. And I don't remember a whole lot about the game. I do remember being sort of sitting up there and looking around going, this is great. And me introducing the team out and 20,000 people erupt.
Yeah.
Me thinking based on what I was saying, but might have been because the team was running out. I'm not too sure. But it was, it becomes quite intoxicating when you get involved in that announcing role. And you put your own touches on it, your own style on it. And and again, it was a really important launching pad for me.
Was there nerves? Like obviously.
Oh, shitting myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. It was the biggest I'd ever been. And I remember at halftime, Steve Crow came up to me and said, "Mate, you're doing great, but you just need to slow down." Like I would have been going miles an hour. So it was. I would have been, really nervous. And I was sitting in a box that was not much wider than here. And the old grandstand at the ISC, it was basically a box that hung off the roof. So you had to go and climb up on top of the roof and down a ladder to get to. And I shared it with all the TV commentators. So again, I'm sitting here and Fatty Vaughton and Peter Sterling are walking down.
Oh, come on!
Like, I'm going. This is, man, I've made it. This can't get any better.
And in terms of preparation, like your 95 gig, your breakers, and then like your first game with the Knights. How was the preparation for like the game? I mean, even with the breakers, you said were you a big soccer fan at the time, and did you have to do?
No, and it was going from baseball where I knew a lot of the players, and one thing I learnt really early in my announcing career is that you've got to get the players' names right. And I still remember the very first game I did at Breakers Stadium. There was a guy from Newcastle, only young guy on the team. His name is Brad Wicherak.
Oh, I went to school with Brad.
So Brad was playing. He might have debuted that game, and I've announced him on the field as Brad Wicherak or something like that. So that's
a difficult name. You got
the see it written down.
Yeah.
And at halftime, this guy's come and knocked on the door of the announcer's box. He just kind of sat in the corner at Breaker Stadium, and he said, "Who's the announcer?" I'm like, well, the bloke who's just run out there made his debut. All of his family's here today, and you've got his name wrong. His name's not Brad Wicherak; it's Wicherak. Like. Cool. Got that right. So it was a lesson learnt really, really early.
Yeah.
That it's an important role that you play in the match day. And I suppose for the sake of jumping around a bit, I was really fortunate to go to the Rio Olympics as the hockey announcer in 2016. And we were there the week before the game started, and we had a workshop day with all the announcers at all the sports and these are people from all around the world. We had a guy who presented who'd been to every summer and winter Olympics as an announcer since 9. Another guy was all the NFL. He does the Super Bowl and all the big NFL stuff.
Yeah, right.
The guy I worked with was the announcer for the San Francisco 49ers. So these were, and there was. Wow. And here's me, the kid from Newcastle, thinking, "What the hell am I doing here?" But this guy who'd been to all these Olympic Games, he got up there and he said, like, the most important thing for you to do is to get people's names right. If you imagine the 100 meters, men's 100 meters, it's in terms of athletics, it's one of the bigger events in terms of participation. They have a whole heap of heats, they have semi-finals, finals. To eliminate down to that last 8. He said you imagine a runner who has been training his whole life and he's finally got his moment on the Olympic stage. And he's heat 1, race 1. He goes out in the track and you get his name wrong. He runs 15 seconds, lasts by a long way. That's his Olympic experience gone. And you couldn't even get his name right.
Mm.
That was the kind of reinforcing from the Brad Witcherack day. The most important thing for you to do is to get people's name right. And it's anywhere in life, right? Like I've grown up with the name Glen Hawke. It's not too difficult a name, but it's a respect thing.
Yes.
For starters. And it shows that you give a shit about your job.
That's right.
And whether it's doing some NRL games now, we might have an under 20s game on beforehand. I'll always go down and check with the opposition manager and look, some of the Polynesian names and Islander names are really, really tough.
Yeah.
I always make an effort to go down and check off with the opposition team's manager to go through. And look, let me tell you, sometimes I go to the manager and I say, "What's this name?" And he says, "Mate, I've got no idea."
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of preparation through my whole career, that's probably been the most important thing, just to get people's names right.
And is it like a long process for you to do the preparation, or is it like over the years a lot quicker?
Yeah, look, I suppose with working in rugby league for a long time, game after, and I work for a couple of rugby league clubs, so you see a lot of these players throughout the season. So, and then year after year, but it's always a glance when teams come out the Tuesday beforehand to go through who's in the sides, and if there's any ones that are missing. I've got mates who are journos and presenters for the NRL, and there's plenty of them. We all kind of, there's a bit of a network of announcers. We kind of reach out to each other and chat about who's on and this bloke plays for your team. How do I say his name? And so that's it's still an important part. And but yeah, it is probably a little bit different when you get to see the players week after week.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have your first season with the Knights. They give you. Do they give you like a long-term contract, or is it a week-to-week?
No,
or how does that all work with the Knights?
I've never had a contract with the Knights. It's been
really
it's been for 20 years. It's been just a year-by-year handshake deal, and the people who are looking after it at the moment have been there for a few years, and it's I've got a really good relationship with the club. I love being part of it, and it's it's pretty much just a year-by-year prospect.
So 2003 was your first season with the Knights. So you've seen some of the greats go there with the Knights, the Johns, Andrew Johns, Danny Badiris. So who are some of your standout players that you've seen for Newcastle? Even at the start, like when you weren't commentating. The announcer.
Yeah, look, it's in terms of Newcastle, Andrew Johns is maybe a little bit biased from Newcastle, but he's the greatest that I've ever seen, and probably will be. And
it's true, but it's
to be able to say that I worked in 2003. I think it was his last. He was 2005 retired, so I got to work for the Knights for a couple of years in his last couple of seasons. So him first, Danny Badiris, Kirk Gidley, Steve Simpson. There's been quite a number of Newcastle Knights players that I've been really fortunate to see. There's been some lean years since, but some lean
years.
Yeah, and look, as I said, I worked for a couple of NRL clubs now, and I've worked with the Roosters for the last few years, and they've gone through a wonderful time in their club's history, and again seeing up close, James Tedesco and Boyd Court, Hubert Cronk, and Jarrah Warrior-Hargreaves, and these kind of guys, watching them do their thing week in, week out is pretty incredible as well.
So it says here that you're not only the Newcastle Knights, but the Rabbitohs, Roosters, and the Sharks. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've got those 4 locked in for next season as well. So
great.
So that's all good. Yeah, so look,
how do you keep like a bias thing there, with like, you know, being a Newcastle guy, Newcastle fan, and then you're sort of like the Roosters of all teams, you know?
now
Was
look,
that difficult at the start?
Craig, gets difficult right to the point that you have to put your invoice in at the end of the game. So I've long said that I am a rock solid fan of the team that's paying me on the day. So
That's right.
but
Yes.
look, in all seriousness, it's regardless of who, you know, I'm a Knights. I'm a Knights guy. Right? I grew up with the club. I watched the first game, so and they will always be first and foremost. But it's a job. It's a performance. It's easy to get passionate about the team you're supporting and you're working for on the day, because that's your job and that's your role. Is there any teams I wouldn't work for? Probably not. But yeah, look, it becomes, and there's been different times. I work for the Roosters and the Rabbitohs, and effectively
the premierships, you know,
they clubs hate each other, right?
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago now, I was doing the announcing for the Rabbitohs and working on field at the Roosters, and after the end of the South games, I would host a member function. I did that for a couple of years, and this particular season, I was working for Manly as well. Who would have thought that I would work for Newcastle? But hey, their money's as good as anyone else's at the end of the day. But I remember getting up on the stage and, great win tonight by the Rabbitohs, and great to see all the members here. And there's this little old lady sitting down the front. She's looked at me. She said, "Where's your Roosters shirt today, mate?" I've been out of here. And the lady sitting next to her said, "And your Manly one as well." Been outed by these two old ladies, being heckled by these two old ladies down the front. And you know, every team has the proud and passionate fans, but the Rabbitohs fans are they're something else. They love it, absolutely love it. But look, I've been really fortunate. I've actually worked for a number of, I've done some work with the Dragons. I've done, a couple of games for Parramatta and the Bulldogs and West Tigers, and so I've kind of
done the rounds.
Hoard myself around to whoever's willing to pay me different times, but yeah.
But that's the thing about going when you go back and like growing up in Newcastle, like you were saying, your family is like a big sporting family. My family's a big sporting family as well. My mum and dad's side, the Newcastle Knights fans, and we've got this big reputation. Like even when we first started, like we were so passionate and like. Doesn't matter we win, lose, or draw, as long as we're tough and we give it a fair go. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's and it's been tough with the Knights over the last couple of years. Like we've been 3 wooden spoons in a row, but what has been incredible being part of that over the last few years. Like we had maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. We had lining up for a 3rd wooden spoon in a row, but it was Old Boys Day, and it's the last game of the year each year. The Knights have their Old Boys Day, and all the old players come back and they do a lap around the field and a guard of honour. And I think we had like nearly 20,000 people turn up for the last game of the year, where we were
coming last,
officially anointed as the last place team. So we'd sit there and look around at this crowd and hear the crowd and think, give the club an ounce of success and they'll be locking the gates an hour before, because there'll be so many people in here, such as the passion for the club. And it's heading in the right direction. I think we've made some strides in the last couple of seasons. I think there's still a fair way to go. Like it's whenever you talk, and I always look at it, but where are the Knights going to sit? Are they going to be in the A, they're going to be top 4, what have you? But you kind of, I kind of look at it in who have they got to be in front of? Like who's got to perform worse for the Knights to perform better? And I think we've seen with the league at the moment, there's the top 4. There's a couple of really good clubs in that top 4 at the moment.
Yes,
there's some next to the group in the top 8, and there's this big. Well, I think there's a big block from sort of 6th to a
bit of a gap. Yeah,
12 to 14 that could make up the bottom part of that 8. But it'd be nice to see the Knights have another, keep improving. I think premiership's still a little while away yet, and that's just because they're really tough to win.
Yeah, and like seeing Mitchell Pearce leave, that's unfortunate. It makes our halves a little bit thinner now. Like, I mean, quality players. Actually, I don't even know who's going to be the halfback for next
Adam
year.
Clune. Adam came from the Dragons. Phoenix Crosland, who I think. Look, I'd love to see him get a crack. He's a kid who played under 18s, I think under 20s in the New South Wales side. So he's been there or thereabouts for a while. The couple of games he's had, it's been on a short preparation to fill in. It would be great to see him get a full preseason under his belt. And from all accounts, he was great for the club last year. It would be good to see him. We've seen a lot of good kids leave Newcastle over the years and flourish elsewhere. It'd be nice to see him be the next man up.
Where were you? 97 grand final, 2001 grand final?
97, I was with, I remember, I'm not too sure where I went the night before, but I woke up with a hangover. I was only 22. So it was pretty standard Sunday morning, but I went round to a mate's place and we were all Knights fans, and we were sitting around in the afternoon watching the lower grades as you do, and just sort of think, daring to dream. Imagine if they win, and it's like,
no chance.
How cool would it be to go into the Workers Club? Yeah, it'd be good, but no, it'd be packed. Anyhow, we all saw what happened, and the full-time siren's gone. We're all in raptures, and my mates were at his house, and he's disappeared. And shit, where's he gone? And he's come out. He's got his jeans on. I said, right, we're into the Workers Club. So I remember we got an esky. There was 5 of us, 4 or 5 of us. My mate's girlfriend is now his wife now. We got in her old bomb car with an esky. She drove us into town. We got as close as we could. And I don't know how we did it, but we've pushed our way through. And I've got through, there was 3 of us by this stage. I've got through the door. The security guards got my mates around the neck so they couldn't get in. Somehow they got their way through, and we've burst through into the foyer of the Workers Club, and we were like, holy shit, we're in, right? And we tore upstairs the old auditorium as the players were getting introduced out to the stage. But it was it was something else, and I still remember watching the parade, and it was a wonderful time for the club and the city, and you'd like, and look, even working for the Roosters, the last couple of years when they in 18 and 19, when they won premierships, and I've worked on a few NRL grand finals just to be part of those days and see how much it impacts so many people. There's the 17 players who play. There's the wider squad. There's the coaching staff, the trainers, the whole lot. But it's more than that. It's the administration staff. It's the person on the front desk.
Yes.
It's everyone involved with the club. What it does for the people involved, and I'd love for the people of Newcastle and the Knights to experience that just once.
Yes.
It's something else.
Yeah, and then again in 2001, that game, that team, you look at it on paper and go, how come we didn't win like 3 or 4 years in a row there? Like that Andrew Johns, Simpson, Robbie O'Davis, Gidley, It
was a superstar side, and that weekend I was actually in Wollongong that weekend we had the country championships, and I think I was the team manager or something for the senior rep side. So we were at the West Illawarra Leagues Club or something like that, and so the Newcastle rep team, we all went to this Leagues Club and we watched it there. And one of the blokes in our team was a good mate of mine, was a Parramatta supporter. He was the lone Parramatta supporter in the room, and he didn't, funnily enough, like it as much as what enjoyed it. But again, you're right. It was a superstar team. They lost I heard your interview with Clint Newton, and it was the previous year they lost the unlosable, and I remember that one. I was with a group of mates watching the prelim final against the Roosters in 2000, and by halftime we'd planned our weekend to the grand final the next weekend, and then sat there with the shits at the end of the game, going anywhere. So look, and then a couple of years past that as well, and I think it'll be a time that the club will look back on in, I suppose now, but in years to come, to think that the Knights should have got more than 2 premierships in 4 years, because we really haven't seen in 20 years a team assembled like that.
Not like that, no.
No, it's made such an impact. So hopefully there's another one around the corner.
I think so. Like, there's hope. There's hope. And the fans will keep, like we keep saying, the fans will keep turning up regardless of, as long as they keep trying and they have a go. If they have a go, then they'll turn up. So you've continued to do that. You got next year, which is fantastic. But I also see here that getting back to baseball as well, that a big point for you was hosting the first Major League Baseball game here in Australia, and for me, it was amazing. So tell us about that whole experience.
When I look back in terms of, if I ever have to do a top 5 things I've been involved in, that's not too sure where in the 5, but it gets a start. It was, and again, being a baseball person, and I still have never been to a major league game in America before. So, have a big league game in Australia was just mind blowing to think that it could even happen. So I remember we were down there a day or two, might have been 2 days before, because they had the Major League Dodgers and Diamondbacks on the Saturday night, Sunday, and then the Team Australia played each side on must have been the Thursday night and Friday night. So we were down there on the Wednesday for kind of rehearsals and pre-production. And I still remember, so I'd been to the SCG so many times as a cricket and a rugby league ground.
Well, let's just go back a little bit, Glenn. It says here that in 2005, the 2005-2006 cricket season, it was the first time that you were Sydney Cricket Ground announcer. Yeah. That's like an amazing achievement, Glenn.
Look, it was incredible, and cricket was the first sport I ever played. I've done heaps of rugby league. Worked in rugby league for years and years, but I never played the game. Never played rugby league ever. But I played cricket, and only as a kid, and only through to sort of my, late teens, a little bit in my early 20s. But I played it, so I kind of had an even greater connection to the sport. And look, going back to that match, and I think I said to you earlier, that was Warren McGrath Langer's last ever test match, and I still remember walking into the ground and going up to the box in the top of the Brawongle stand and looking out again, having a little bit like the moment when I went to the first Knights game. I was like, this is the great moment. Someone's actually paying me to be here and talk. It's phenomenal. And
was that a hard process to get that position, or was it a bit similar to the Knights where it was just look,
to go back a step again, I was doing work. I'd done the baseball, I'd done the soccer in Newcastle and rugby league in Newcastle, and that was a kind of point I was sort of thinking, well, what else is there? What else can I do? And at the same time, I was working in PR, and I had a good job there, and the job I had there was not. That was kind of the opportunity in Newcastle. So it was, what else can I do with this announcing without throwing all the rest of this in the bin and starting again? So this is, early days of the internet where you didn't just Google jobs. I remember getting I got the Sydney Morning Herald, and I was looking through the job pages, and there was an ad this big, like just this little in the classified saying, like, and I should have kept it, but it said like wanted, announcers, hosts, MCs for national and international sporting events phone this number.
Wow.
I thought, well, why not?
Yeah.
And it was a number of a company called Great Big Events, who is still, still operating and very successful, and they've been, they've been a benchmark for sports presentation, not just in Australia but around the world for a long time. So I contacted them and said, "Hey, my name's Glen Hawke, and I've done a bit of announcing. What do you guys do?" And at that stage, Great Big Events had done sports presentation for the Sydney Olympics. They had contracts with the ARU, with Cricket Australia. They did the Sydney Swans. Essentially, all the big codes in Australia, they were working with them. So I was like, "Here's my details. If there's anything come up, let me know." And it turned out this was in the period where, going back some time, before the A-League football started, we had the old National Soccer League, which the Newcastle Breakers were part of. They shut that down, and they had an 18-month hiatus and then relaunched the A-League. So there was a world, before the A-League started, there was this World Club Challenge because they needed the Australian team to go through and play the rest of in this international tournament. So Great Big Events were doing stuff for the league and also for the Central Coast Mariners. So they kind of said, "Oh, we need someone. You're in Newcastle, down the road. Can you do that?" And I went down thinking I was going to be the ground announcer. And the guy said, "So you'll be down on the ground." I'm like, okay. So who's sitting? I thought I was sitting up in the box here reading out the team. No, we've got someone for that. You'll be down there on camera. And I'd never been on camera before and hadn't done anything like that in my life. So I was really shit myself this time. And I fessed up. This woman who was the floor manager, who essentially is the person who looks after you and tells you what to do and where to go and when to talk. I fessed up to her, and she said, "Oh, this is my last event. I've got a job doing something else." I said, "Right, well, I'm got a confession here. I've never done this before. So any help you can give me, that'd be wonderful." So somehow I managed to bumble my way through that with Great Big Events. But
so you have like scripts and all that ready to go, like
scripts and things. But I was used to just sitting there with the script in front of you, reading things out, not just having to look down the camera and put on a performance. But so that was my first event with Great Big Events. Jumping around a bit, I went to the Melbourne Com Games with them. I went to the Asian Games in Doha with them. They had the work with Cricket Australia, so they contacted me and to see if I could do. They actually contacted me the year before, and I'd already booked a 6-week trip to Europe.
Oh.
And I almost cancelled my Europe, but I didn't. And I thought, "Oh, well, look, what will be. And they contacted me the next year. So that kind of got me to. So it was through Great Big Events that got me the opportunity to work at the cricket. And as I said, it was Langer War McGrath's last Test match. Every time I announced their names in particular, the crowd went ballistic. And the Newcastle Knights games were amazing to be part of, but this was
next level.
It was an international event. It may have been 2 hours down the road in Sydney, but it was an international event, and it was amazing. And that was 15 years ago, and I think the last 8 or 9 seasons now I've been traveling around the country working on cricket as well.
220, the one-day games and the test matches. I mean, that you're covering everything, mate. It's just and with the cricket as well. Like again, seeing your Instagram, there was one particular game that I was actually back in Australia and I watched it on TV. It was the bushfire cricket bash.
Yeah.
And you got to interview Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, you know, you're doing McGrath and legends of Australian cricket. But come on, Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, he's
that was one of the most incredible days I'd ever been part of. So I was already in Melbourne we're doing the women's series with India, which was leading into the T20 World Cup. And this was all those all the bushfires had happened. So this all came together really quickly.
Yeah.
Ricky Ponting and Brett Lee and a couple of others ringing their mates around Australia and the world saying, "Can you come to Australia?"
Game.
So we had
Brian Lara, was
Brian
it?
Lara was there. Courtney Walsh was there. Wasam Akram, Sachin Tendulkar, Ricky Ponting, Shane Watson, etc. Right? So
the who's who.
Yeah, so I was hosting with a friend of mine, Nevo, and so what they said to us, it was all a bit loose in terms of like these guys having a bit of fun. We'll just bring over at the end of each over, we're going to bring one of these guys over, and you're going to have a chat to him for the big screen and for the crowd. Great. So the floor manager, Kylie and Haynes, who's a really good friend of mine, I said to her like this: I don't care who we're interviewing today. I don't care if I don't get to interview anyone else, but I want to talk to Sachin.
Yeah.
And Neve said, oh, that's cool because I just want to talk to Ricky Ponting. So we're cool, right? So no dramas there. So Sachin's kind of just sitting over in the dugout area. All these other guys, and they were all amazing. Like, they were also giving of their time and so happy to be there. And with their interviews, Wasam Akram was fantastic. He was a real character. But it got to the innings break, and Kylie had gone over and spoken to the security manager for Cricket Australia, who she knew really well. So we want to have a chat to him, and he said, "Look, mate, how about it's Sachin, right? We'll see what we can do," kind of thing.
Right.
So just on the innings break, kind of it's all happening on the field. And Kyle's walked over and said, "Come with me now." So we've walked over, and there's people everywhere. So we've basically put our head down through the crowd and popped up, and there was Sachin. And Sachin's about
little guy.
I'm not exactly 6'2". Yeah. Sachin's about 5'7". So I walked up to him and said, "Hi, Sachin. My name's Glenn. Would you mind if we had a chat for the big screen?" He said, "Of course we can." I could not tell you a single question I asked him or a word that came out of either of our mouths, because I'm just sitting there the whole time going, Sachin Tendulkar. I'm actually talking to Sachin Tendulkar. And it's one of those moments, and you learn, and I've been really privileged to speak to a lot of profile people in the time, and you learn that the majority of them are just people who are pretty good at their job or pretty good at sport. And he's certainly one of them in terms of just such a, but in India, and as you're a cricket fan, you get like, he's a god. He really is. And there's certain times, there's every chance that I'll never be in the same neighborhood as Sachin Tendulkar let alone speak to him again. So to be able to have that moment and have that experience to sit there and have it was a 3-minute chat, but a chat with Sachin Tendulkar. So that was, it was a very cool moment. And again, you sort of said from the outset about those pinch yourself moments. That one was well and truly up there.
Yeah, actually, I saw it. I've got cable TV here, and I've got the Fox, and they showed the bash. The bushfire, a replay of it. So I did actually. I see you. Yeah. I could see you were having fun. You were very excited. Yeah,
it was so much fun. It was just, as I said, the fact that the talent was so, they all paid their own way to get there, and they all gave so much of their time. So they were everyone was in good spirits and always in a good mood, and they couldn't have done enough to help out on the day, and this was certainly part of it. So that made it so much easier for me, and I hopefully came through to the crowd as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're doing all the cricket, but it's not just cricket at the Sydney Cricket Ground, as some people might not know, especially internationally. You've done the Socceroo games, Manchester United, Liverpool, Juventus. Again, like I saw a picture of you with Neymar Jr.
That was quite incredible. Went to Singapore to see Brazil. So Brazil does a world tour. Well, back in the normal times, did a world tour, and a company that I'd done some work for again rang me and said, "Any chance you can come to Singapore for 5 days and work on a couple of games?" So
Is that like a random? Is that like random, or is it just like
yeah. So I'd worked with this company a bit and different things, but this kind of popped up, and I haven't had many conversations that started. Would you be free to go to Singapore? So I mean, it was, some gigs are pretty tough and some gigs aren't. In terms of, this was 2 games in 5 days, and the rest of the time was just essentially a holiday in Singapore that someone else was paying for. So that was pretty cool. So, but Sadio Mane, who plays for Liverpool, he played in that game as well. Neymar was there, and again, it was funny. He came out on the pitch, and it wasn't a huge crowd because it all came together really quick, like really late. So it wasn't a massive crowd, but there was these Brazilian fans and a lot of expats there who were just
hardcore.
It's a bit like Sachin with Indian fans. Neymar with Brazilian fans is exactly the same. So he's gone out to warm up, and he's got these diamond earrings on that were massive, and he just kind of did his own thing. And the warm up had finished, and he's walking off the field, and all this crowd has come around the tunnel where he was going to walk off, and he just sort of had his head down. And we thought this would be interesting as to, it's hard to even comprehend, like a Sachin Tendulkar and a Neymar, where they literally can't walk down the street because they just get mobbed and hounded and all this kind of stuff. So you can sort of see people like that get into a bit of a defensive mode when all these people are wanting them. But he's walking off the pitch just with his head down, and then all of a sudden he's taking his shirt off, Brazilian training shirt, and thrown it into the crowd. And this bloke has got it, and the crowd's going hysterical. So we're going to interview this guy. And this guy, all he could get out, he's had the shirt, he's holding it up his face, he's saying, "I love him, I love him, I love him." That's all he could say. But you see what sort of impact these superstars have on people's lives. It's quite incredible. But another, I suppose there's two other football games that stick with me. It was Manchester United came out and played at the Sydney Football Stadium, and for me that was a case of, this is Manchester United. Yeah. Right. Liverpool came out, and I got a chance
Melbourne? Is that the Melbourne Cricket Ground?
No, I did the one at ANZ Stadium, Stadium Australia. To me, that wasn't necessarily the game, but I got to interview at halftime Craig Johnston, who you would know, who was a Newcastle boy who won an FA Cup in 1983 or 5 or 7 or something like that. So to me, that was a huge thing to be able to interview Craig Johnston at halftime, and we both sort of got some mutual acquaintances that we sort of connected on, and so that was wonderful to meet him, and his story is truly amazing. And the other one, football wise, I got to do the first time LA Galaxy came out with David Beckham.
Oh, right.
See at Stadium Australia again, and there was 80,000 people watching him play.
Did you do the one where they were at Newcastle as well?
Yes. Yeah, that was a couple of years later when they came back. But so it's the first time.
First one, right?
Yeah, first time he'd been in Australia, and every time he touched the ball, the crowd erupted. Like there was, they brought out a squad of 20. I'd defy anyone else to name one of the player on that team. Yeah. So every time he touched the ball, and he would take the corner kick, so that part of the stadium would all just stand up. And this is 2006. The people actually had cameras with flashes on it, so you see these flashes going off. And then just before half time, LA Galaxy got a free kick just outside the box. David Beckham's lining up for it. And so with these, usually when I'm working and doing these events, particularly with football, it's not a free for all commentary thing. I usually wait until someone tells me to talk, because they have to coordinate big screen and all this kind of stuff. So it's usually, the process would be, they kick a goal, we put a music sting video on it, replay, and then the producer or show caller would say, all right,
The goal scored by
now announce, and you would go.
Right.
So this one, David Beckham just lined it up, and he's just done a classic David Beckham, curled into the top left corner. And the mate of mine who was the show caller just turned to me and said, you know what to do. And moment to say, goal to LX Galaxy scored by number 23, David Beckham. It's like, I just announced David Beckham.
Yeah.
On the field. So that was very cool. And again, sort of, as you said, he came to Newcastle.
And that did wonders for Newcastle, and like it was sold out so quick, and you know.
But you talk about people who just happen to be good at what they do. There was a number of different functions and coaching clinics and things like that, and he went to them all. And the Newcastle Herald got this really good photo of a kid at the so they had the hockey centre that's just next to what's now McDonald Jones Stadium. It's where they played the soccer and the rugby league. So they did the soccer clinic on the hockey field on the artificial turf pitches. And this kid, who might have been 5 or 6, his shoelace was undone. And David Beckham's gone down and tied this kid's shoelace. So at the end of it, one of the journos said to him, so why did you tie that kid's shoelace up? He was like, because his shoelace was undone. And I've got a kid that age. So
yeah.
I'd hope someone would help my kid as well. So, I mean, it's like and particularly in his halcyon days, he was an international rock star and probably still is.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful to see that he's just a bloke who played football pretty well.
That's right. Yeah. At the end of the day, and like all these people that you're talking about, they're just normal people that have just got a high profile.
They just do something really good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. International. But if you're marrying a Spice Girl, I guess you're gonna have to have people all around.
Yeah, I suppose they were competing for airtime a bit there as well. But
that's right. Yeah. He retired a couple of years ago, didn't he? He's not playing.
Yeah, plays anymore. Just just rakes in his millions through endorsements and
endorsements and Nike. Yeah,
keeps posh in a lifestyle she's grown accustomed to, I suppose.
That's right. That's right. So, sorry, Glenn, I just want to get back to that, the baseball game, the Major League Baseball game at the SCG. It was huge for baseball here in Australia. Having the Dodgers, arguably one of the biggest team. You got the Yankees and the Dodgers, most recognized. So for the Dodgers to come down here, amazing feat. So tell us about that.
So firstly, I walked into the SCG, and it's kind of changed a little bit now with the redevelopment, but you kind of walk down from the car park and then you walk between the and the ladies' stands and you can see the field. So I still remember as I'm walking around the back of the members' stand, the Qantas choir is rehearsing and they're singing I Still Call Australia Home. So I'm listening to this, and as I walk around, I see the SCG perfectly transformed into a Major League Baseball ground. One of the key parts of making this event happen is that Major League Baseball would not compromise on the ground. Like the game was the most important thing. So they weren't going to go and we're going to put it on a rugby league ground with 180 yards to right field and 400 to left.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It had to be inch perfect, reproduced baseball ground. And what they did was just amazing. So just to see the SCG transformed into a big league ground was phenomenal just to see it. So I said we went there the day before for the rehearsal, and I've gone upstairs into the production room, which looks down on the SCG, and I was the only Australian person there who was a baseball guy, right, or a baseball person. Everyone else was sports fans and kind of didn't really know much about baseball, but I'm sitting there going, I'm a kid.
You're in your element. Yeah.
They also bought out, so the Diamondbacks, it was their home game, so they bought out some of their production team, so the people who work on there, and as well as their announcer, a guy called Chuck Drago, who sounds like when he was talking, he sounds like he could be a Simpsons character or he's got this incredible American accent, and I'm still in contact with him today, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. But they just the recreation of the baseball park, and so I'm sitting up in this production room, and there's Chuck there talking with this accent that I could only have ever dreamt of. And the Dodgers are taking batting practice on the SCG. So we've got a production meeting happening over on one side, and here's me just gazing out the window. And a friend of mine, Kylie, I mentioned, I said, I'm tapping her on the car. It's the LA Dodgers taking batting practice on the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Who would have thought?
And also, Don Mattingly was coaching there.
Diamondbacks. Yeah.
Who else was one of the coaches as well? Mark Maguire, who was the home run king. Might have been steroid juice, what have you, but what didn't matter. He was he was the hitting coach for the Dodgers as well.
Yes.
So I'm growing up, I'm seeing these guys as well. So just seeing this unfold was incredible. So once we went down, once the productions meeting finished, I said, I'm going down to watch batting practice.
Yeah.
So Kylie Ann's come down with me, and she said, I don't get how big this is. Give me put it in a perspective for me. So at the time, Clayton Kershaw, who was a pitcher with the Dodgers, just signed this
huge
multi-million-dollar deal, and he walked past, and I said, I see that guy there. He just walked past us. He's just signed a contract. So I said, so Kyles, you work for the Dragons, St. George Illawarra Dragons. They've got 30 players in their roster. Each year, what those 30 guys get paid collectively, this bloke gets more than that in 1 year.
That's right.
Well, what, just for throwing a ball? Yep, just for throwing a ball. So
it's not all about that.
Was incredible, and so then to see, so then when the games happened, so for the first two nights, I did the announcing with Chuck. So I did all the Australian team coming up, and then he did either the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks. So we kind of shared the announcing duties for the Major League game. MLB said, we want a game, protecting the game.
Yeah.
Chuck will be the announcer. I did stuff in between innings, but in terms of the in-game stuff, Chuck did all that. But you mentioned about one of the really, really cool moments for me was it would have been when the Diamondbacks played Team Australia. I had this moment where Glen Hawke, kid from Newcastle who played a bit of baseball, was sitting up in the announcer's box, and relief pitcher from the Diamondbacks, Ryan Roland Smith, walked out of the bullpen to the mound, walked past second base umpire Paul Hyam, who you would remember, bloke from Newcastle, who happened to be umpiring. So there was three of us from Newcastle who all just happened to have this moment where I announced Ryan out, who walked past Paul to go on the mound to throw for the Diamondbacks. So it was, wow. something really incredible. And I suppose the other thing that happened so we played those two games against the Australian, played two games, and that was amazing. And then Saturday and Sunday they played. So they played under lights on Saturday night. They played a day game on Sunday.
Because it was actually an official game,
official
game for the start of the season. Yeah, they did it.
So as part of the pre-game on the Sunday, they had this moment where they were going to acknowledge every Australian who had played Major League Baseball. So they had this video montage played up, and then I had this script, and I'm not too sure how many there were, but obviously it wasn't all of them, but there might have been 15 players, and it would be, hailing from Geelong. He played 2 World Series with the New York Yankees. Please welcome Graeme Lloyd.
Mm.
From Brisbane, Australia's first Major League All-Star, play with the Brewers, Dave Nielsen. And so I've had the script. So that was my moment to read out. So for whatever reason, through the or as we're getting in, someone from Major League Baseball's come in to speak to our producer and said, look, we're running out of time in the show. We're going to cut out this introing the players to the crowd. We're just going to put the video up.
No.
So I'm not going to claim that I was the reason why this happened, but this was none of my business, right? I'm just the second announcer. And I said to this guy from Major League Baseball, I said, I don't think that's a good idea. So these guys have probably all of them have plied their trade in America. A lot of these people everyone would know who they are in this crowd and a knowledgeable baseball crowd. But these guys have never been recognised in Australia for their feats. You know what? They've done incredible things overseas, but they've never been recognised in Australia. This is they've all been invited. They've all been told they're going to be presented to the crowd today. You can't take this away from them.
Yeah.
But this is their one moment in their career that they can stand on a field in front of a knowledgeable baseball crowd in Australia and be recognised for their achievements as being one of only, at the time, probably 30, less than that, Australians who have played in the big leagues. This doesn't seem like a big thing to you because every second person in America has played big league baseball. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So anyhow, for whatever reason, they tightened the script up and we got them
to do it.
And as I said, mate, it maybe it would have happened, maybe it didn't, but it was just a moment that I just sat there and thought, I can't just let these people probably don't understand how big a moment this is for these guys to have that 5 minutes on the stage to be recognised. So
yeah, absolutely,
it was amazing. When I said talk about the top 5, that one's in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about that like I interviewed Peter Moylan last year.
Yep.
Atlanta Braves are my favorite team ever since I started playing baseball, and they won this year. Go Braves! And like he told me like he could come back and no one will recognize him. He's like, he played Major League Baseball up until like the 2019 season, 2018, 2019. He comes back to Melbourne. He can walk around. But if he goes to Atlanta,
he's just a rock star.
He works on Fox Sports South with the Atlanta Braves. So he's a celebrity. But here in back at home, it's so maybe one day it'll and getting into that, looking at your Instagram again, you've been involved with the ABL in Australia. It said that you did commentary for the ABL All-Star game.
I did
ESPN as well.
Yeah, I did a bit of TV commentary. A couple of years ago now, which is 2014, 15, around that time. So I did some we would have been with the relaunch of the ABL, kind of a couple of years into that. They invested a bit into a weekly TV show where they'd send a film crew out and shoot a game and cut it down to an hour highlights. And I would sit with Glenn Williams, and he was a former big leaguer and a legend of the game and a great guy as well. And he and I would sit in a studio in Parramatta and say, it's great to be here in Norwood Oval, Adelaide, or wherever we were. And we did commentary on the games there. And so ESPN, I did some play-by-play stuff for ESPN down in Melbourne, and also did some work with and Fox Sports. They telecast the championship series. Again, the years kind of start to blend in, which makes me feel how old I am. But again, I was the in dugout kind of sideline throw down to me to interview some people in the dugout and special comments or whatever it may have been. But yeah, again, that was I haven't done a huge amount of television work. Mostly on camera stuff's been live at venues and things. But yeah, that was certainly something that it was good fun. And yeah, if the opportunities presented themselves again, I'd love to do sort of more of that.
And more recently, you with the Blue Sox, the Sydney Blue Sox, you have your own podcast now as well.
Yeah, look, everyone's doing a podcast, aren't they? So you mentioned Shane Barclay, who's an old coach of yours. He got involved in as the manager again, and Adam Dobb was the owner and GM. And
the owner, I can't believe Adam Dobbs.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So he had a couple of years, and so yeah, they asked me if I'd be, have you ever done a podcast before? And I hadn't, and it was good fun just putting together, I suppose, what you do and what you've done, but having that whole creative process from starting from an idea through to producing something, creating some content. And yeah, that was great. We had Dobby ended up getting Manny Ramirez to come out and play, and it didn't quite eventuate how he wanted to, but I had a chance to interview him a couple of times, and that was very cool, talking to him about the superstar Blues Red Sox team that he was in. And I also interviewed Rachel Balkovec, who is came out as a hitting coach, and she's doing some incredible things with the New York Yankees, and she'll be the GM of a major league organization at one point. I have no doubt whatsoever. She was probably one of the most inspiring, incredible people I've ever had the privilege of speaking to and meeting. It. So yeah, that was really good fun to create the podcast and help the club out as well in terms of just helping to promote the game and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of inspired me a little bit. I've got a few little different ideas sitting there that maybe I'd like to tackle one day. It's just a matter of
that's what I'm saying. Where do you fit all this time in when you got all the cricket and the football and the winter time and
yeah, it's kind of that's the thing. And look, one thing that I did appreciate or learn to appreciate, that to produce a 45-minute to an hour podcast takes a lot more than
it does.
An hour. So it becomes quite an all-consuming exercise. But as I said, something, and to me, as much as anything, it was a learning experience that, to me, every time you do an interview or anything like that, you're learning more about yourself and how you want to, and you listen back to things and think, why did I ask that question? Or why did I ask like that? Or how can I make that better next time? Or so that was and I suppose that's been the same thing right throughout my career. Like, I've sat down and turned the microphone on. It's an opportunity to get better and to be, to improve improve your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask one thing before we get close to wrapping it up. We need to hear you, Newcastle.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Well, it's like drilled into my head, every time I go to a Knights game. Where did this come from?
So we spoke about that first time that I worked at the Newcastle Knights game, and it literally just came out of my mouth. It was, and I don't remember a lot about the game, but I kind of remember the moment, leading into any kind of rugby league game, or as most sporting events, you kind of, everything you do from, gates open through to kick off, it's all about building the crowd. So everything you do, it's all about, hyping a little bit more. And doing announcing the teams through to run on, through to kick off, that's where it kind of, really builds. So, and I still remember announcing the team, starting at fullback, number 1, Robbie O'Davis, number 7, Andrew Johns. And each time I did it, the crowd's going nuts. And I think this is really cool. So we've announced the team. I can't remember who they played in that first game. I probably should write that down at some point. But the night, please welcome whoever sponsors you, Newcastle Knights, and the crowd's going bonkers. And they're just about to kick off. And I've just gone, we need to hear you, Newcastle. And the crowd's gone nuts again. I went, well, that worked pretty well. And every game I've done over the last 19 seasons, I've
before the kickoff
kind of been the catch cry before
the whistle blows.
So it wasn't 19, nearly 20 years ago when I did that first game. It wasn't something that I sat down beforehand and went, I need to come up with a catch cry.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
It was in this day and age, you would say it was very organic. It just happened, and I suppose it's a bit of a legacy thing from what I've done, and hopefully I really hope it's something I can do for a lot longer.
Yeah,
I love it.
And on like a personal side, it says here that you developed Caris Communications.
Yeah, yes.
Managing director in 2014.
Yeah, so that's my PR business that I've worked in PR since I was 19. I wanted to be a journo and fell into PR, and 2014 I started my own business, and it's part of my juggle that I do every day, trying to juggle each things. And there's times when I'm sitting at a cricket ground somewhere, I'm tapping away, responding, and I suppose it's fortunate the way we live and work these days that you never really turn off, and you're always on. But what it means that I can be sitting at Adelaide Oval introducing Marnus Labuschagne to the crease and be responding to it.
How good is he playing just quietly?
He's killing it. He's a superstar, and what he's done in the last since he came in as a concussion replacement for Steve Smith in the 2019 Ashes to what he's doing now, to be 20 tests in and the world's number one
average of over 60 or something. And you continue to grow this communication. Is it just a small?
Yeah, look, it's me, and I've got a couple of people who work with me on that as well. Great, which allows me to go and do the fun stuff every day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, look, I'm really lucky. I've got some, some good, solid, longer term clients that I work for, kind of day to day. And look, it's, as I said to you, it's when COVID hit, all the announcements, all the fun stuff went in a moment. But the PR work, it kind of picked up a little bit as well, because crisis communications and preparing for the worst, media responses, all that kind of stuff kind of picked up. So and I think going back to that being my full-time focus for a while as well, it kind of really, I suppose, re-energized me a bit as well to, rediscovered why I enjoyed that job. A little bit less of the juggle was good for a while as well. So, but no, I'll now continue to just keep juggling as best I can for as long as I can.
Do you call it a job?
It's funny. There's been times, and I've told the story plenty of times, that a little while ago now, my brother said to me, asked me what I was doing on the weekend. I said, I'm working a weekend. So tell me what you're doing. I was like, I got to go. I'm at the Knights on Friday night, and I've got a Roosters game on Saturday night, and I'll stay down in Sydney and I'll do a Sharks game or something. And he's like, that's talking shit at footy games. That's not a job.
That's the dream.
Well, it is, and I'm really lucky that not everyone gets to say that they absolutely love what they do, and I'm in a really, really fortunate position that I do. I absolutely love what I do. I've had so many of those, as you said in the outset, those pinch myself moments that I can't believe I'm doing that. I still do that. And after what we've experienced in the last couple of years, I've never taken it for granted. And when so much of it gets taken away so quickly, and even probably a month before the Ashes started this year, there was still a level of uncertainty as to what I would do and how much, because they didn't even know if the games were going to be on. So, let alone where. And, going back to the start of this year, we restarted the rugby league season, thought this is great, we're back. And then everything gets taken away to Queensland, and I sit at home with the shits each weekend going, that could have been me. And, and it's not, and with the tough part about that as well is that it's not just, it's my job, and it's nice to get paid for these things, but it's, I'm really lucky. My job is, I've got so many friends that I've got through my work.
Yeah.
While I was in Melbourne last week, we had to catch up with some people I used to work with at cricket, and we were sitting around, and there was people from Melbourne, from Adelaide, a few people from Sydney, and they're really close friends because you travel 3 months of the year. People with cricket, you travel with for 3 months of the year, and they become more than just your colleagues. And people I work with in rugby league in Sydney, like all that's kind of taking. So it wasn't just taking away your income; it takes away your social network as well, and people that you would see every second weekend or what have you. That's kind of taken away as well. So, So look, I've been really fortunate that what this work has given me for so long, and I fingers and everything else crossed that it continues to.
Yeah, and speaking with all the travel and being away a lot, must have a very understanding wife, and
she does a wonderful job.
Family as well.
I've got a young boy who's 14, and he's got his own challenges. He has autism, so that's that has its own challenges as well. But it's all part of that. It's all part of that juggle that we do. So
I saw a picture there of you a walk for Autism Day this year. What was that like?
Oh, amazing! My son goes to a school called Aspect, which is Autism Spectrum Australia, and my wife works for them as well as a teacher. They are just an amazing organisation, and I really don't know where my son would be without the support they get from the school, and the teachers there are amazing. They care more than teachers need to, or the majority of teachers go into the profession because they have a genuine love and passion for what they do. Teaching a class full of kids with autism ain't an easy job. So it takes, not anyone can do it. And I'm sure that there's been different teachers at times who have why
am I doing this?
Yeah, and that's, and you know what, that's totally fine, because it isn't a job for everyone. But the ones who are there do an amazing job, and so the support they've given my son has been great. And April each year is Autism Awareness Month, so we do the school does a walk, and we raise some money for them, and it's again forever indebted for what they've done for Riley in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Picture for Glen Hawke.
Look, I would. I hope that I'm doing the announcing or hosting, what have you, for the Newcastle Knights until I fall off the twig. I love doing that job. I think it's a case of sort of maintaining some of these really key jobs as long as I can. If you could throw myself into something and know you're not going to fail and succeed, I'd like to do some more commentary, be it radio or television would be probably a long bow to draw, but some sort of radio or streaming type commentary would something that I'd like to do. And out
of your comfort zone or baseball?
I'd like to do some cricket stuff. I think it's something I think I could move move into somehow. That would be something I'd love to do. And in terms of bigger events, I had an opportunity to go to Tokyo this year, but for many and various reasons, I decided not to. But Paris 2024, after going to Rio in 2016, Paris 2024 would be, I think it'd be a really good one. So that'd be nice to do as well. We'll see.
Wow, that's a good it's a good choice. And tell us, what advice would you give to someone that wants to do what you do? I'm sure there's a lot of people from especially from Newcastle, that want to be. I want to be that guy,
Yeah, look, I don't know just about this job, but any job. My whole career has been based around just having a crack. Just if you want to do something, just have a crack at it. Look, you've got to work hard. You've got to prepare well. You've got to be able to put the time in. That's all really important. But I got a crack at doing this announcing job because I thought, well, why don't I just ask someone if I can? Like, if
that's right, I
could have rang that guy and he could have said, "No, look, we're fine. We'll stick with that." And there's been plenty of times where that's happened to me over the last 25 years. But mate, going back to the old baseball analogy, if you don't swing the bat, you won't hit the ball. So
that's right.
Have a crack at and do it to the best. Do it to the best of your ability. Like if you're going to have a crack at it, don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
Have a crack, throw yourself into it, give yourself every chance to succeed.
Yeah. And if you're doing it half-assed, you may as well not do it at all, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And Glenn, tell us about your social medias. Where can we find you? In the social media world.
Yeah, at Glen Hawke is on Instagram and Twitter, and I've just launched myself yesterday into the world of TikTok. So
come on.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I've got some videos of, and most of my social media stuff is just work related. So so I'll going through the back catalogue of some talking at sporting events that I'll throw up there as well to, and that's the thing, like it's, you never know who's looking at these things, you never know who's watching, and
that's right.
Yeah, throw yourself out there.
And tell us about your podcast as well, the Sydney.
Yeah, Blue Sox Banter it was. It's actually wound down now because the ABL season didn't happen. So yeah, we'll see what happens next year, and hopefully, if that all goes well, we can get that back up online.
Right, absolutely. All right. Now, to finish off, I just asked a bunch of sort of random questions to sort of get to know you a little bit more, Glenn. So, your top 2 or 3, favorite things as of today. Don't think too hard about it. We'll just go with it. Okay. So the first question is, I'm big into my music. So, tell me your top 2 or 3 all-time favorite bands or music or singers.
Yeah. Again, show my age a bit here. My first kind of real love of music came from Billy Joel, Piano Man himself. I've seen him in concert a few times, so I would put him up there. And we'd had a resurgence in Queen in the last. Oh,
come on! Yes.
So, again, showing my age a bit, but I'd throw those in my top 2 all time.
Okay, and albums, favorite albums.
2 that outside of those 2 that. Top 2 albums, I would say Oasis Wonderwall or the Champagne Supernova, that album from the mid-90s. I think that was because of the time of my life that I remember it. And Dookie, was it the Offspring? The Dookie album?
Dookie's Green Day.
Green Day. Yeah, that one. And again, similar kind of timeline. They're probably the 2 albums that'll you can turn on at any time, and music has a wonderful ability of take you back to a time and place, and those 2 albums do that for me.
Absolutely. And Australian music?
A song that I've heard, Gang of Youths, Australian guys who they've done a cover of David Bowie's Heroes.
All right.
Actually playing it at the cricket at the moment. So that's a really cool track that I like to listen to. But yeah, I'm pretty old with my music.
Like every time, again, going to the Knights games, it's always like Silverchair, and it's like the Jets as well, and Chisel and
Screaming Jets and Silverchair with a little bit of local flavour, yeah, for sure.
Come on. And in terms of movies, your top 2 or 3 favorite movies?
My favorite movie of all time is The Blues Brothers.
Oh, nice.
And I'll throw in Major League in there as well for you as well. Because at one point in my life, I think I knew every word to the movie, so I'll throw that in for you as well.
It's funny. It's going to be a difficult one for you, so I'll give you maybe 5. Your top 5 favorite sporting teams. It doesn't have to be like.
Yep. So I'd say the Newcastle Knights will be in there. I love my cricket, so I'm going to throw in the Australian men's and women's side. I've done a bit of work with the Australian women's cricket team, and I've absolutely bloody loved it. They're an incredible team and great people as well. So I'll throw those couple in there. I'll throw the Sydney Roosters in there as well. That's the second rugby league, so a bit controversial, but I've worked for the club. I'll throw them in there as well. Let's be a little bit parochial again, and I'll say the Newcastle Jets. They might be going terrible at the moment, but I'll throw my local support behind them as well.
They've had some good and down years, so
more them ones than the up ones. But
yeah. And destinations. Tell us 3 places that you've been to, your top 3, and 2 or 3 places that you'd like to go to in the future.
A few years ago, I did a Kentucky tour around Europe and America. And the places that I mentioned, I spent a little bit of time in New York, and I didn't even begin to scratch the surface. I'd love to do that. Paris was amazing. Standing under the Eiffel Tower after watching it on television and seeing pictures, to be able to stand underneath it and go, that's the Eiffel Tower. That was a real moment. And I think I'd like to go to London as well, just to, again, these scratch the surface of that I never got to see too much of them. So I've been to them. I'd love to go back to them. Somewhere like my brother did some time around Spain and Portugal, and that would be nice to go. And I'd love to get back somewhere in America and see a big league game over in America somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Who is your favorite Major League Baseball? Do you have a baseball team, like a favorite?
I haven't. No, I've never really been I've never really watched. I've never really had a team, which is probably good because you can kind of watch any game and appreciate.
Yeah.
Game. Favorite Major League, I should say Ryan Roland Smith, shouldn't I? It's my favorite big league baseballer of all time.
Players, yeah. Well, that was my next question. Like 3 or 4 players, people that you've seen perform, sporting. That's tough. I mean, but
yeah, look, I've been part of and watched some incredible sporting events, but I think to be able to say that I was there and saw Andrew Johns play. I was sideline of the 2018 grand final where Cooper Cronk played with a broken shoulder. That was an incredible performance to see, to be part of and to watch. To be there and to see David Beckham kick a goal at ANZ Stadium was amazing. And then even, working at Commonwealth Games and being part of an Australian men's hockey team winning a gold medal. So little bits, and it's not always the biggest stage, but it's just, the moment sometimes as well. And even, little things. I've watched every ball of Michael Clark getting 300 in Sydney, and I saw every ball of David Warner getting a 300 in in Adelaide. Like there haven't been that many players score 300 runs in innings in a test match, and I've been sidelined to see a couple of them. So yeah, been very fortunate in that sense.
Last question, Glenn. Who is your greatest inspiration / hero?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
You can have a couple. That's okay. But
do you know what?
Tell me why.
I'm going to say my greatest inspiration is my son. You know, he's been dealt a hand that most people don't have to be dealt. And in his own way, and every day, he manages to get through. And of the things that, of the stuff that, the challenges that he has, he does incredibly well. And sometimes there are such little things that things that other people would see are just, minor
day to day
little things. When he'd brush his teeth by himself, or put his shoes and socks on, or things that are really tough for him.
Yeah.
What I see him do and the challenges he overcomes to, day to day, and he probably never understand it, but he inspires me.
Yeah, absolutely. And how old is he now, if you don't mind me asking?
14.
14?
14.
And does he
nearly as big as me?
Does he does he understand what Dad's achieving with at the moment? Like, or is just
give a shit? No,
he doesn't give a shit. Is he a nice fan?
No, look, he's not really. Doesn't really engage with anything like that, mate. He's a Wiggles fan. Loves the Wiggles. Wears a red shirt everywhere. So that's his. That's his thing. Wiggles and music and the like. I've got 3 nephews, my brother's kids, who are 10, 8, and 6. They think it's pretty cool what I do. So they're big sports fans. So that's that's really nice.
It's just amazing what the Wiggles do. Like it's not just in Australia. It's international. Glenn, they're huge around the world. The kids just absolutely love it. So yeah. Well, Glenn, I think we could talk for another 3 or 4 hours, but I think we might have to. I think we have to stop it there. But,
I'll be 2022 before we get to know it. Before we know it, so
it's almost getting into the 2022. But I thank you very much for your time. I mean, just looking behind you there, you know what you've done and achieved, and you've got more to achieve in the future. It's you're living my dream and a lot of other people's dreams, meeting all these people and getting to do this. And, we have a lot in common. So for you to see all this, I'm glad, it's a good guy like yourself. And I wish you all the best for the future.
Yeah, thanks, man. Look, I really appreciate, and I suppose a little humbled that you'd want to have a chat to me after having a look at the long list of people that you have. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been lovely to sit back and reminisce, particularly about the